Assalaamu alaikum and hello everybody. I hope you're all doing really well. So today we're going to talk about something really exciting, and that is granny hobbies. Hold your horses, loves. It's going to be a wild ride. So all over my, not quite all over. That's really exaggerated. I've seen a couple of posts on X and on TikTok or Instagram. I don't really go on TikTok much, but I've seen like reels and posts about granny hobbies and women talking about how they're taking up different granny hobbies and how they love their granny hobbies. I'll share a couple of the TikTok videos here so you know what I mean.
I'm a 27-year-old grandma with no kids, and you might be too. If you do 3 of the 5 following things, you might also be a Grammy. Have creative hobbies that you are 100% dedicated to. Crafting, cooking, baking, scrapbooking, etc. Your sweet tooth is bigger than your being, and you always have 3 or 4 sweets on deck. You might even love to bake. You live in your pajamas, and you always have a glass of wine, coffee, or tea. You have a strict bedtime, but you have to read, listen to your audiobook or podcast before you hit the hay.
Oh my God. I get it. Oh my God. I get it.
So I just wanted to talk about granny hobbies, and I thought it'd be nice to kind of share my hobbies. What is a hobby? Before we talk about granny hobbies, let's talk about what a hobby is. So a hobby is something that you do frequently or regularly in your leisure time for pleasure, so something that you enjoy. So you might be surprised or maybe not to learn that there's quite a few positive health benefits to having hobbies. So it's positive for your body to have a hobby. That rhymes, kind of. So you might get a better sleep at night, improved physical health, lower stress, better mental and emotional health, and improved problem solving skills. Wow, those are some wonderful positive health benefits, you must agree. So that's hobbies in general. So now we're going to talk about what granny hobbies are. It's kind of self-explanatory. So these are hobbies that we'd usually associate with grandmas or granddads or older people, people who've retired and have got a lot more leisure time than those that are younger and like working full time or busy with families. To be honest, they're just normal activities and hobbies and life skills, but because it's people under 40 who are indulging in these hobbies, they're called granny hobbies. If you were a normal 60-odd-year-old and you're taking part in these hobbies, that would just be normal for you. You wouldn't call it a granny hobby. So some examples of granny hobbies: you've got crafting, knitting, sewing. They all sound so exciting. If you guys are bored of this video so far, there's something wrong with you, alright? Gardening, baking, scrapbooking, puzzling, bird watching, wow. Playing an instrument, painting. Now, how relaxing and soothing do all these hobbies sound? So you might have noticed that during the pandemic or during all the lockdowns that we had, we were all at home, not much else to do, and the popularity of these types of hobbies or granny hobbies increased dramatically. Everyone and their mum and grandma was baking sourdough bread or banana bread. Do you remember those days? So I was searching for some stats and I found this one that shows the 10 most popular granny hobbies in the United States. So number 1, you've got crafting at 38%. Who'd have thought? The next one is baking, 37%. Wow, I do love baking. That's definitely one of my granny hobbies. And I am basically a granny now, almost. No, my kids are not pregnant. I feel like I'm a grandma. That's all I mean by that. I love the third one, drinking tea. How is that a granny hobby? Every age does that, but I guess because it's the US, that's not common to them. In the UK, we love our tea. So drinking tea, which is classed as a granny hobby for some strange reason, 35% like to indulge in a cuppa. Can't blame them. Then you've got gardening at 28%, and the rest puzzling, playing cards, collecting, couponing, antiquing and sewing. So couponing and antiquing are 2 granny hobbies as well. I'm definitely like a coupon queen. Like I love my bargains. I don't cut out coupons of a magazine, but everything's online now. Like I will look at coupons online. So I guess I do indulge in couponing once in a while. So there's a couple of other stats on this slide. It says 45% of Americans under 40 have at least one granny hobby. Well, they're just general like life skills, aren't they, some of them? So I'd be surprised if people didn't have like at least one of those hobbies. Like I'm sure a lot of people like to drink tea, and if that's classed as a hobby, then basically everyone has a granny hobby. 26% of men and 60% of women. So definitely the women like their granny hobbies a little bit more than the men. So me personally, there's a couple of granny hobbies I picked up, especially during lockdown. So the main one was gardening, something I didn't really do before the lockdown. So planting little seeds and the satisfaction that you get out of producing and growing something from scratch. So if I plant a couple of tomato seeds, a few months later, we've got some real tomatoes that we can actually eat and enjoy. So it's really amazing. I've always loved baking and puzzling or jigsaws, two hobbies that I would like to indulge in but haven't had the time yet. Knitting and sorry, it just sounds hilarious, I'm just picturing myself sat there knitting and crocheting. Those are really useful skills. Like imagine if there's like an apocalypse or Armageddon and someone needs a nice warm jumper. You know, I can say I can knit a jumper for you. I mean, I need some not thread, what do you call it? Knitting thread. Yarn. Is it yarn? What do you knit with? So you need yarn. Yes, yarn, I knew. So you need your knitting needles, yarn and scissors, of course, yeah. And I'm sure you need other things to help you. But yeah, when I went Poundland last, or the time before that, I saw some really nice colours and I thought, shall I get some yarn? But I thought there's no point because I know I'm not going to actually indulge in knitting just yet. But it's definitely a useful skill to have. And most of these granny hobbies are just useful life skills, aren't they? Like baking, jigsawing. Okay, that's not much of a life skill, but it does exercise your mind. So this next slide looks at why granny hobbies are actually so popular. So this is mainly looking at American audiences again. So the first thing it says is that Americans under 40 are drawn to these hobbies because 49% of them prefer a quieter life. 32% feel stressed out. 27% feel overstimulated by modern life and technology. Can't blame them, it does get a little bit much, you know. 15% feel overworked and their friends, family or partner is interested in them. So that's what helped them get into those hobbies as well. And why do they love these hobbies? 55% because they relieve stress. So that tells you that a lot of us are quite stressed out and we need that calm and relaxation, don't we? We really need our granny hobbies to keep us wound down and level-headed, or whatever it is I'm trying to say. 42% said they foster creativity, support introversion. What does that even mean? And they encourage self-connection, so they help you to connect with yourself. And how beautiful does that sound? To me, that sounds pretty damn beautiful, you know. So apparently the granny lifestyle is trending. So I've only seen it online recently, but I am pretty slow a lot of the time. So it might have been trending for a little while, but it's clearly something that people are drawn to. So it's not just the hobbies, it's a whole lifestyle. So it might reflect in your clothing, the way you dress, your decor, your decoration, and how your rooms are. So it says 80% of Americans under 40 prefer a night in to a night out. So that's a really high percentage, isn't it? People are just wanting to just relax a lot more than just go out and I guess go clubbing or whatever else they'd be doing. 43% of Gen Z loves the coastal grandma aesthetic. I sometimes get confused with the different terms like millennial, Gen X, Gen Z. So I'm classed as a millennial, which feels too young for me. So if you're born between 1980 and 1994, I'm born in 1982, so that makes me a millennial. Gen Z are born between 95 and 2015. So a couple of my kids are Gen Z or Gen Z. Can we say Gen Z in the UK? Because for Z, we don't say Z, we say Z. So I'll just say Gen Z anyway, because it doesn't sound right otherwise. Gen X are born between 65, so 1965 and 1979. So some of my older siblings would be Gen X. And then baby boomers, I guess, are my parents, is it? Yeah, my parents' generation, so 1944 to 1964. So Gen Z, so that's like younger than me, those under the age of about 29, something like that. They're really into the coastal grandma aesthetic. And if you're wondering what that is, I looked it up and it's like an old white rich lady. So imagine you're living like close to a beach, you've got a beach house and you wear like the white kind of linen trousers and yeah, that kind of look, you know what I mean. Then it says 41% of women under 40 love the grand millennial home decor trend, and that's basically like the granny chic style, and it is a pretty fine style, I won't lie. So it combines traditional and homey pieces with modern elements. Unlike sleek, modern or industrial interiors, grand millennial style embraces typically outdated decor such as floral patterned curtains and china plates and prints. Sounds pretty fabulous to me. And then it says 39% of millennials go to bed before 11 p.m. So yeah, I think people just want that relaxation and a calm and relaxed life, because life just seems too stressful, too much technology, so much stimulation, so much overstimulation, and we're kind of going back to our roots and our hobbies and trying to do things with our own hands, build things, make things, and just trying to relax and calm ourselves down. So clearly we're all just walking around here with mental health issues needing to calm down. So in case you don't have a granny hobby yet, why not? What's wrong with you? You need to pick up at least one. No, I'm joking. You do you, boo. No one's forcing you to do anything. But here's some reasons why you should pick up a granny hobby today. So as we've talked about, the mental health aspect, reducing stress, less anxiety. So when you're doing your little hobby, whatever you're doing, let's say you're gardening, it helps you to reduce your stress, get rid of the anxiety for a little while. No one can really say that gardening or any granny hobby is bad for your mental health. You won't really hear that, would you? So there has been research on hobbies and the positive effect that it can have on people. And one study found that those adults who practice art, they found the time they spent to be relaxing, enjoyable and helpful. So the people who took part in these art sessions, their cortisol levels were taken. So cortisol is the human stress hormone, and your body's stress response is linked to a spike in this hormone cortisol. So the cortisol level was taken of these participants, and it was found that there was a noticeable decrease in the level of cortisol in these participants, which shows that their stress level was reduced. So another advantage of granny hobbies or hobbies in general is that they let you unwind from the stresses of daily life. You can relax and zone out, really switch off from your day-to-day stresses. So for example, you might be working in a high demand job, or if you're a mother to especially younger children and you're constantly stressed, then having a hobby that you take time out for can really help you. A few other advantages or pros of taking up a hobby: it's time well spent, it's fun, helps you to improve your creativity. Like I said, with some hobbies, it's a life skill, isn't it? So you're actually learning something useful which you can help other people with or help yourself with. So you can be more self-sufficient by taking up one of these hobbies like gardening or canning goods, or what were some of the other ones? Scrapbooking. That's a really good life skill right there. Another study in New Zealand found that taking part in activities that bring out your creative side helped you in the long term in terms of an increased sense of well-being. The people involved in the study felt a sense of positivity and upliftment after only a few days of creative activity. So 2 more pros of taking up a granny hobby is that it prevents burnout and it helps you to develop a sense of self. So after watching this, you're thinking, I'm going to pick up a granny hobby right now. I can't wait to take up my next hobby and it's going to be something really relaxing, but where is the time? So what can you do if you're just too busy to incorporate a granny hobby into your life today? So the simple answer is to make time wherever you can. So don't make it like a big deal and think, okay, at 6 p.m. every other day I must sit and do my hobby. Any little pockets of time that you can find, like you might be on your lunch break and then just pull out your knitting needles and work on that little jumper or hat. The amount of time we spend on social media or watching TV, Netflix, it's quite crazy sometimes. Sometimes I'll be scrolling through Instagram, and hours have got, okay, not quite hours, but a lot of time has gone by, and I'm like, I could have done something really useful, because at the end of the day, I don't get much out of it. I do get some information and keep up to date with what's going on around the world, and I have a little laugh here and there, but in the long term, like, I've not actually gained much. So replace that time, if you're like me, replace that time with a hobby instead, and you'll feel like you're doing something more productive, and your mind is switching off from the constant onslaught of technology and screens. So if you can recognize where you're wasting time, then you can swap some of that out for a hobby or two. So as Muslims, is it okay for us to take part in hobbies? Generally, the rule is that as long as it's not affecting your worship, and as long as the hobby that you're taking part in is halal, then it's okay. So if you've got a bit of spare time, you don't need to be praying, you're not late for your prayer or anything, then it's fine to indulge in a little bit of a hobby. If you've got hobbies and they're distracting you from your worship, and you're spending less and less time praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and connecting with Allah, then you really need to reevaluate your hobbies a little. So I did actually look up what did the Sahaba or companions of the Prophet do for hobbies, like what kind of things did they used to enjoy doing. So archery seems to come up. They liked their horse riding, didn't they? So in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, practice archery and practice horse riding, and practicing archery is more beloved to me than that you practice riding. So there you go, those are two things that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged. In terms of life skills, we've heard the hadith about the Prophet sewing his own garments. So this is the evidence I could find for that. Hisham said, I asked Aisha radiallahu anha, what did the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, do in his house? She replied, he did what one of you would do in his house. He mended sandals and patched garments and sewed. So the Prophet had no issues about taking part in those activities and gaining a couple of life skills by sewing garments and stuff. So yeah, we shouldn't shy away from it either. I think it's really useful, and alhamdulillah, I can sew. I don't really enjoy it. I don't know why. It's not something I find relaxing. I think it might be the sewing machine I've got. Sometimes when the thread breaks all the time, I get really annoyed. So it's definitely the opposite of relaxing for me. But knitting, I think is, so I keep mentioning knitting. Knitting is where it's at, I think. So yeah, let me know, guys, what kind of hobbies are you into, whether they're granny hobbies or not. What do you find most relaxing? What gives you that sense of peace and tranquility? Something we all need in this day and age, I think. So yeah, in conclusion, take up a granny hobby or two. See how it goes, see if it helps your mind relax, especially if you've got anxiety. But yeah, whatever your condition is, whether it's dipped up or not, granny hobbies is where it's at. I really hope you enjoyed this just random chat about granny hobbies, and inshallah see you in the next video. Take care, salam, bye.